Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to Aussie NFL Talk. I hope everyone's had a good week. I'm back with another week of NFL predictions for week 5. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. If you don't mind having a bet, I do upload my top 5 bets every Sunday just before all the games get started. So make sure to turn on the notifications to know when it drops. Alright, so enough of that. Let's get started. Let's jump right into game 1. We have the Rams at the Seahawks. Alrighty, so first off, playing in Seattle, it really isn't easy. It's one of the loudest stadiums in America, actually. And, you know, Seattle's defense, they're really, really good. That front seven, I've said it week in and week out. It's one of the best on paper. Last week, you know, they played Arizona and they absolutely destroyed them. We all know the Rams have a big issue with their defense, though. That simply really just wasn't good enough last week. They need more pressure. They just, for the talent on that D-line, they're just not getting there. Russell Wilson, I feel he has his best plays off his play action, so keeping the run going for Seattle this week will be key. So they have 3 really powerful backs in the backfield, and they like to run at people down people's throat. The offensive line, it's really weird. It seems to open up holes really well for the run game, but they really struggle to protect Russell Wilson. But both teams, they really have the talent to have a great pass rush, and they rely heavily on the run game. So look for both teams to open it up with the play action with the run. Rams, look, they need to get off to a better start. Look, last 2 weeks, they've had really, really slow starts. Goff's having a real problem with turnovers at the moment, purely because he's having to throw the ball so much. 68 times last week, that's crazy. That's pretty much 2 games worth. But yeah, they really need to get Gurley more involved. He just doesn't look the same. He touched the ball like 5 times last week. Yeah, they really need to get him in the running game more involved this week if they're to have any chance, really. The offensive line for the Rams, it's struggled. It just keeps giving up sacks. You know, still going against Seattle, I think the difference with Russell Wilson being able to evade some of those crucial sacks, it's going to be the difference. And to be honest, I think that the Seahawks pulled this one off this week. I think that they pulled off 30-27. Alright, so next up, we got the first of these Sunday games. 2 teams I might have written off early here. Panthers defense, you know, it's actually been really good this season. I didn't think they would. They actually lead the league in pass defense, as well as sacks this season. So they held Deshaun Watson really, really in check last week, who, you know, I've been watching him this season. I like to watch him, and he's been carving up defenses so far. They did a really good job of containing him. CMC, I thought if he was overloaded, he wouldn't play well, but, you know, I was wrong. He took the workload, and he carried this team, you know, through the whole game. But going up against a really good defense in the Jags, it'll be a really, really interesting matchup to watch. The Jags, they need to be able to contain him, pretty much, you know, if they have any chance in this game. Because Kyle Allen, he's proven he can stand in as a replacement right now. The Jags, also another very strong defense. The thing is, they haven't been able to take away the ball. But that may change this week. I have noticed Kyle Allen likes to throw it up into double coverage when he is pressured. So getting pressure will be key. We all know that they're a great D-line, 18 sacks as well. Leonard Fournette back, 400 yards so far this season. Great game last week. Really needs to take pressure off Minshew this week against that heavy pass rush. But he should really play well because the Panthers have struggled a little bit to stop the run. But as I said, they need to protect Minshew really well. I think the Panthers, they actually take this one at home this week, 24-17. Alrighty, next up, we have the Patriots at the Redskins. Okay, so I've been saying the last couple of weeks that I actually really like the Redskins roster. But, no, I am done. They're trash. Like, they have good players, but they just can't get it together. I don't know. Just put Gruden out of his misery. Seriously. They're going to 0-5 this week against the Patriots. But, you know, the Patriots last week, they had about all they could handle against Buffalo. But they're still really, really, really good defensively. 18 sacks this season already. 10 interceptions. Easily leading the league there. Even their special teams is playing awesome. The only thing that's really lacking at the moment was the offense, but you know they played up against a really good defense last week. But you know the Redskins, their defense struggled all season. They give up massive plays in the secondary. There's just miscommunications left and right, missed tackles, you name it. They've only managed to score 16.5 points. You know, against average opponents. So they're near the bottom of the league in yards, offensively, defensively. Whereas, the Patriots, they're just on another level at the moment. Brady, he's going to be fired up to have another big game this week after last week's disappointment. Dwayne Haskins, though, he looked disappointing last week, but he with a full week of practice in this week, I think he'll perform a little better. Patriots are going to easily take this one this week, 34-6. Alrighty, next we got the Bills playing at Tennessee this week. So the Bills have really been my surprise team of the year so far. Despite the loss last week, their defense just absolutely killed it. They're actually ranked second right now. Getting pressure on the quarterback, it's there, but they're just not quite getting the sack numbers right now. Third down, they're really, really good at getting offenses off the field. Second in the league in the defense. They've been taking the ball away as well. They actually picked Tom Brady last week, didn't let him throw a touchdown. Offensively, they can run the ball as well. They're averaging nearly 150 yards per game. This game's actually really tough to predict if Josh Allen doesn't play because, as you know, most of you probably heard about that nasty hit last week that he took. If he's out, I think they're really going to struggle with Matt Barkley, though. But the Titans, they actually looked really good against the Falcons last week. They shut down their running game, pressured Matt Ryan all day, forced a fumble there, took away the ball. The defense is really playing a good ball so far, to be honest. Great at getting off the field on third down as well. So it'll be a bit of a defensive struggle this week, I feel. They've really done a great job of keeping the ball in front of them as well. They've only allowed their longest play this season so far allowed on defense is only 37 yards. So their offense, but they need to get off to a good start. It's so key to them winning games. Their left tackle, Taylor Lewan, he's back this week. He's a big part of their success of the O-line over the years. The defense does their part, but once they fall behind, they can't use Henry the way they want to. So last week they showed it. They jumped out to an early lead and let Henry just wear down defense. Mariota, he looked confident. Despite an ordinary first few games, he doesn't turn the ball over, I've noticed. Still no giveaways. Only quarterback left this season, no giveaways. The offensive line needed to protect better, but as I said, Taylor Lewan's coming back and I expect that to help. I'm really excited to see how Mariota plays, with a full complement of blockers this week because his job's on the line. They're really thinking about his future. I think the Titans win this one this week, 23-17. Bit of an upset. Next up, we got Ravens going to the Steelers, playing in Pittsburgh. So coming off a tough loss last week, the Ravens, they're really going to be keen to get their season back on track. They gave up 40 against the Browns last week. The defense will be especially jumpy to make up for that, Despite giving up massive plays last week, you have to give credit to the Browns' play calling. They really just kept them off balance. Ravens are still ranked top tier offense though, averaging the most yards in the league at the moment with 482 yards per game. So the offense needs to pick up where they left off in week 3. The Steelers, they've struggled to stop the run. When it's used creatively, and the Ravens, they're the best at it. So the weakness right now for the Ravens, they have to stop the big plays. They just can't stop the bleeding with the big plays over the top. They've shown an ability to get off the field on third down. They're one of the worst teams for giving up big plays. The Steelers haven't exactly been explosive though so far this season, so I don't really expect to see much of a problem there this week for the Ravens. James Conner, he's still a bit of a dud. Juju, he's getting doubled everywhere. The role players, they just aren't picking up the slack. Coming off their first win last week, though, they looked much better throwing, protecting the ball, and running the ball. Defense provided a really good rush, as they do, year after year. They're finding the football and defense as well. That's so key this week. The Ravens don't often cough up the football, so if they can find a way to force a couple of turnovers this week, they might see the game really, really close towards the end. Plus, the Ravens, they gave up 4 sacks last week, so they should have their chances there on the D-line. I think the Ravens, though, they just have the better talent, to be honest. Despite the 2 straight losses, they've scored 25 or more in those losses. So they put up a good score this week, and they should easily take this one out. 31-19 on the road. Okay, so Cardinals at Bengals. Probably my least want to watch game this week. They're both winless. It's a really similar matchup. Both teams' secondaries have looked really, really bad. Arizona, they allow 417 yards a game. The Bengals 386 on defense. Both teams have struggled to stop the run as well. With the two talented feature backs that these teams have, I expect to see a lot of running. David Johnson, he's made a lot of plays this season, but they've mainly been in the pass game. Obviously, because that O-line of the Cardinals, very, very bad. Cardinals have the edge on the defensive line pressure, though, this week. However, I really do like the Bengals D-line. They have a lot more of a basis to build around with Geno Atkins there and Carlos Dunlap. This game's going to be filled with sacks, bad O-lines, struggle to protect the quarterbacks. I actually think this will be a bit of a shootout this week. So no team really excels at one thing. But, they both have talent that I really like offensively in the skill positions. So, I overall think that the veteran's going to pull this one out this week. Andy Dalton, 31-26 over the Cardinals. Next up, we have the Falcons playing in Houston. Okay, so I'm really, really, really disappointed with the Falcons offense this year. And defense, quite frankly. I know they're missing a couple of weapons there. But, they can't run offensively. They average just over 70 yards a game. That's pathetic. They have Devontae Freeman back there. That's ranked 27th. So, getting off to a slow start, though. That's often why. They can't stop the run on defense either, whereas the Texans have shown the ability to run the ball, averaging 120 yards a game, ranked 11th in the league at the moment. The key to this game for the Texans is to get Watson back on track, though. Last week, disappointing, playing a really, really tough defense in the Panthers. He just needs to convert better on third down. He was only 4 of 11 last week. So as I said, disappointing game last week, but he really should pick up where he left off from week 3. Atlanta, they've shown ability to pressure the quarterback occasionally. They only have 5 sacks so far this season, so not top tier. But the weakness of Houston, their O-line, so they need to get pressure to contain Watson from escaping the pocket. That's honestly the main thing. They don't protect Watson very well. He pulls the Houdini pretty often, so they just got to be mindful of that. Matt Ryan, he passed again for over 50 times again last week. You need to give Devontae Freeman more touches. You need to get off to a better start, and you need to convert in the red zone, and the Falcons just aren't doing it. The Texans, as I said, they were shut down by an awesome defense last week. They gave up a ton of sacks, so the opportunity should be there for Atlanta. The secondary right now, it's allowing too many big plays, especially late in the games for the Texans, and I still really like Atlanta's weapons. They've just got to utilize them. And the defensive rush this week for the Texans, it really should dominate this week. The way that the Titans did last week. They have 13 sacks as well, the Texans, so they're doing a great job across the defensive line. Texans this week, they should get the win pretty convincingly. They might give up a couple of plays late, as they do. That seems to be the trend. They pull it off 30-21. Alrighty, so next up we have Bucks at Saints. It's NFC South Division rivals. Alright, they're playing in the Dome. Big question this week. Can the Bucks put up another awesome total like they did last week? 55 against the Rams. Winston, he had a monster game. Passer rating was 120.5. 385 yards, 3 TDs. But I noticed late in the game, he did sort of fall back into old habits. He did throw a pick. He made a couple of bad decisions. But, the Saints last week, they played outstanding defense. They contained Zeke, the best running back arguably in the league right now. And they didn't allow Dak to hit his main man, Amari. Marshall Lattimore, he has the ability to he's a shutdown corner. I don't care what you say, he's a shutdown corner. And the Bucks, they have 2 of them. So it's going to be an interesting, matchup this week to see who he picks. Mike Evans, we all know he can have big games, but Winston, he's really shown that Godwin lately has been his top target. 2 of the 4 games that they've played so far, he's been the top target. Last week, 14 targets. 14 targets, 12 catches, 2 touchdowns, 170 yards, something like that. So, covering those 2 guys is going to be a difficult task for the Saints. Alvin Kamara, he's easily the most talented offensive player, and he's really, really key in this matchup. Teddy, he's going to need his checkdowns. He's not Drew Brees. And Kamara, he's one of the best receiving backs, running backs in the league. So the Bucs running defense, though, super, super effective. Something I really didn't expect this season. They're actually number one. So far this season, they've shut down Gurley. He had 5 touches last week for 16 yards. Barkley, 8 touches for 10 yards before he got hurt. And, they held CMC to under 40 yards. So they've got the best running D in the league, but unfortunately for the Bucs, I think the Saints, they're gonna play too well at home this week. They're gonna pull it off, 26-20, come down to the last drive, and I think Winston just makes a poor decision, basically. Alrighty, so after watching Kirk Cousins last week, I'm done. He is garbage, pure fucking trash. He has one of the best receiving cores in the league, and he is barely averaging 180 yards in the air. The Giants, they sort of looked to pull their defense together last week. Granted, they did play the Redskins, but 4 picks last week. Really, really good defense. Held them to 3 points. The whole team, it just seems more energized with Jones starting, to be honest. They seem more motivated to do well without Eli. as hard as that is to say. I hate the Giants. But they get Golden Tate back this week. That's going to be a really huge weapon for them on offense. Kirk Cousins, as I said, just terrible. Not worth the money. Can they get a refund? That's a big question. But maybe the Giants can snag a few more turnovers this week, just to flip field position. Get Jones in a nice position. He's a lot better when he throws passes under 10 yards. But Kirk, he does have a tendency, if you get pressures, he just throws the ball up. So the Giants, they aren't seeing the sack numbers, but the D-line, they need to get there this week to force those turnovers. The Vikings need to run the ball more. They've got Dalvin Cook. He's one of the leading rushers right now. They only gave it to him 14 times last week. They did fall behind early, but, it was only 16 points. They should be able to feed him a bit more against the Giants. They haven't been able to stop the run very well. The offensive line should hold up against an average pass rush from the Giants, who, they gave up 6 sacks on Jones last week. The D-line really needs to do a better job of pressuring the quarterback, though. Too much talent not to be getting at least 2 sacks a game, Vikings, really good defensive line. But the way the Vikings are playing, I just can't count on it for anything right now. So I honestly think that the Giants pull this one off in an upset this week, 24-20. It's going to be a really, really good game to watch. Alrighty, this week, Bears at Raiders. Bears without Trubisky this week. Defense still absolutely killing it. Shut down the Vikings last week. The Raiders, I really want to talk about them though. Whatever you say about John Gruden, he knows his offense. So last week they showed off a lot of nice little gadget plays. And it looks like Derek Carr, he knows what John Gruden wants a little better, and he's getting the timing down pat. So offensively, this team, they're pulling it together. Rookie running back Josh Jacobs had a little fumble early, but he showed he was worth the first round pick. Converted the sticks. Offensive line did their job really, really well. Only gave up 1 sack last week. So they need to have a huge game this week against the Bears. And something that the Raiders D-line needs to improve on is getting pressure to the quarterback. They had no sacks last week at all. They only have 5 on the season. They played a good game against a good running attack last week, though, which will need to continue this week. Bears rely really heavy on smoke and mirror plays as well, especially with Trubisky out. So the Bears defensively have picked up right where they left off last season. As mentioned, 17 sacks, often being strip sacks, 4 picks so far. This is how they win games, The offense has pretty much all-round struggled so far. So, if the Raiders can somehow manage to have a big game against the Bears defense, I think the game swings heavily in the Raiders' favor here. Honestly, watching the Raiders last week, I was really, really impressed. And I think the Raiders actually get an upset this week, 23-15. Okay, next up, we have my boys. The Jets are playing at the Link in Philly. First off, as I said, they're my boys. We all know I'm an Eagles fan, but man, did they play good last week. shorthanded in the secondary. Their red zone defense against Aaron Rodgers was outstanding. They had the game-winning interception in the last minute. I absolutely jumped in the air when that happened. They finally provided some consistent pressure on Aaron Rodgers. And the all-around chemistry of the team just looks better. They were still missing Deshaun Jackson on offense, but it really didn't seem like they missed a beat. Fans, we've been screaming for Jordan Howard to get involved, and he did. He had, over 180 all-purpose yards, and the O-line, man, they were opening up holes for the running backs. Not gaps, like I'm talking 4, 5, 6 feet wide holes, But, they've also really been struggling to start off slow until last week. So they need to keep the trend rolling this week and maintain a quick start offensively. Keep them going into further weeks. Wentz at the moment actually rated the most efficient quarterback by Pro Football Focus. So the O-line needs to protect him and keep that going. Jets coming off a bye week, still likely to be without Darnold, suffering from mono. If he doesn't play this week, their offense... If he does play this week, their offense should pick up slightly. But, that's been the lacking part of their game right now. So far, with the new additions on defense for the Jets, their strength seems to be stopping the run. Their offensive line has struggled to protect whatever the quarterback's back there. As you know, Trevor Siemian, he had a nasty ankle injury. But... I think the Eagles should easily have a breakout game this week. Get the pass rush rolling. I'm really, really keen for that. I honestly don't see much of a contest with this one. Eagles pull it off 30-13 at home. Next up, we have Broncos and Chargers, divisional rivals. So the Chargers, they might have Melvin Gordon back this week. Despite Austin Eckler, he's been doing a really, really good job. As a replacement, but it was clear that Gordon was going to be the running back moving forward. He was going to be the man. But coming back in this week, it's going to be hard to tell how much he'll play, but it is something to build around for coming games. Denver typically aren't a bad run defense, but they gave up over 200 yards on the ground last week. Eckler as well, he's been playing Melvin Gordon. The Melvin Gordon edition, it could be a problem for Denver. They've been struggling a little defensively as well. They finally got their first sack last week. They ended up with 5 for the game, but they ended up without Chubb for the rest of the season. He's got a torn ACL. So the Chargers, they know Von Miller well. The defensive players for the Broncos, the other ones are going to have to really, really step up. Rivers, he really likes the long plays, so he holds onto the ball a bit. So quarterback pressure, it's going to be the key for the Broncos in this one. The opportunities are definitely going to be there. The Chargers have really lacked to protect, Phillip Rivers against a good defensive rush. The Chargers defensively, they've been one of the worst teams as well in the passing game, to be honest. It really shows that the secondary is struggling without Derwin James. He's the man back there. Once he gets back in, I expect them to do better, but for now, they're one of the worst for quarterback ratings, opposing quarterback ratings. Flacco, he should have a good game. He had a really good game last week. It was just disappointing they got their loss. The defensive line for the Chargers, however, very, very talented. They have the ability to have 4 sacks every single week. So Denver have somewhat struggled to stop good pass rushes. So that'll be key for Denver to protect Flacco as well. As well as, the Chargers, they have to get to Flacco, I think the Chargers, though, they match up too well against Denver. And Denver's going to take this one out in the end, 33-20. Packers and Cowboys up next. This is actually one of my games of the week. Both teams, they copped their first loss last week. So we should be expecting a bounce back from both teams, but something's got to give, It's been the talk all week. Packers defense exposed. Cowboys offense exposed. So far up until last week, the Cowboys, they've faced pretty average opponents on their way to 3-0 up until the Saints last week. Meanwhile, Green Bay, they hadn't played a lot of offensive-minded teams. So it was tough to gauge how they were going to play against strong opposition like Philly. and they both lost. Green Bay struggled to contain a good running game, and the Cowboys just couldn't maintain drives. I think their longest drive was mid 30 yards. So now I don't think the offense and defense are exposed, as people say. So I think it was just, their first game against good opposition. They hadn't quite adjusted quickly enough. They were both in the games, until the final minute, I believe. Hail Mary from, Dak. But, Cowboys defense, they've been outstanding. That's the highlight of their team right now. But they just couldn't stop the bleeding on third down, so that's a key this week. They need to get Aaron Rodgers off the field. The Packers, they finally heated up a little on offense. However, Devontae Adams, their star receiver, he looks to be out this week with a toe. But, they have a strong supporting cast, so I'm hoping they can step up for Rodgers. Dak last week, he struggled to make plays with the Amari Cooper lockdown. The Packers now have talent at the quarterback too, so, I expect them to see heavy coverage on Amari Cooper. Tyron Smith, I actually saw him. He's listed on the injured list, so he won't be playing. And the offensive line, they've seen really, really struggle. Without Tyron Smith, the chemistry just doesn't seem to be there. Despite being, arguably the best offensive line in football, without him, as I said, the chemistry is just not there. The Packers have struggled to stop the run so far this season, so that'll be key for Dak to get going. Running hopefully won't be impacted too much without Tyron. Overall, I think the Cowboys struggle without Tyron, however, on offense, especially in pass protection. Green Bay's defense, they have a really good pass rush. They're going to have to make stopping Zeke a priority this week. So to make sure that they put the ball in Dak's hands late in the game where I don't think he can perform. Similar to what they did against Mitch Trubisky in game 1, Overall, I think Green Bay, they win it in a really, really tight one, 27-24. Okay, next we have primetime this week. Colts at the Chiefs. The Colts are without quite a few players on defense. Malik Hooker and Darius Leonard are probably the most notable. T.Y. Hilton also probably to miss another week with his quad. I think it's going to really severely limit what the Colts can do overall with these injuries. Although, the offensive line, they protected well as usual. They need to get back to a hot start with the running game. The Colts rely on defenses as much, if not more, than their offense, Short-handed, they're going to struggle to stop anything the Chiefs try to do. Watching Mahomes, he struggled a little bit on deep passes last week. He was 0 for 9. But the Colts, they just don't have the depth back there. The Lions have. So, as I was saying, Chiefs, they had about all they could handle against the Lions, who had a massive game offensively. They ran it all over the Chiefs. One of the weaknesses right now for the Chiefs. But they get a boost in the pass game. Claiborne comes back from suspension at cornerback. But Marlon Mack, he's really been impressive so far this season. And if the Chiefs don't correct their gap play in the running game, I think that he's going to have a really big game. The Lions ripped him for multiple big plays down the middle. I don't see the Chiefs being outscored here. I think the Chiefs pull this one off pretty easily, 36-24. Alrighty, last game of the week. We've got Monday Night Football. The Browns are going to play the undefeated 49ers. Kyle Shanahan, coach. He's had an extra week, to get some plays in there. I love his offensive mind. 49ers, they've been a really good team to watch this season. Compared to last season, their defense, they're taking away the ball. That's crucial this year. I think last year by this stage, they only had one takeaway all season. So offensively, they're ranked 4th as well. Great on third down, and they've been able to show consistency in the run game. They've got really good running backs back there. They call it the running back by committee. Coleman, he's still out with an injury though. But the Browns, they haven't had an ordinary season defensively. They get teams off the field. They're ranked 4th and third downs defensively, and this is going to be key to their success this week. They showed great ability to contain a really good ground game last week. Strength of the 49ers, and have to pressure the quarterback relentlessly, So 14 sacks so far in the season. Monday Night Football this week is going to be an awesome game. I'm really, really looking forward to it. Baker, watching him last week, he still looks a little bit hesitant in the pocket occasionally, but he seemed to find his footing. They seem to simplify down the offense a little bit. So, when he spreads the ball around, he looks terrific. They ran a lot of screen plays against really good pass rush, so I expect to see a lot of the same against the 49ers this week. Playing on the road, after such a massive game last week, however, coming up against a team with an extra week to prepare, to rest up, I think the 49ers, they pulled this one off at home this week and go to 4-0. My prediction is 31-24. Alright guys, so there's my week 5 predictions for this week. If you are having a bet this week, remember, gamble responsibly. I wish you good luck. I will be uploading my top 5 bets on Sunday morning, as I mentioned earlier, so hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications down below just to know when it drops. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope to see you next week.